Right, so we do have some updates regarding the 8-passenger situation, and more specifically to do with Jodi Himdebrandt. We have updates on the waiver hearing that happened just a few days ago. We also have comments from Jodi Hildebrandt's attorney where he makes some very bizarre claims. And we also have a breakdown of what the minimum and maximum sentences could look like for Ruby Franke and Jodi Himdebrandt. But first off, let's actually start with the waiver hearing. And I'm sure a lot of you have already seen this and understand what has happened here. But Jodi Himdebrandt, as well as Ruby Franke, has actually pled guilty to 4 different charges. The exact same charges that Ruby Franke pled guilty to. And just like Ruby, Jodi has also agreed to be sentenced to consecutive prison terms. Now, as for the agreement itself, as we can see from this article on KUTV, it says that both the statements are almost word for word identical, like Jodi Hildebrandt's statement and Ruby Franke's plea agreement. But it does go on to say that there are a few differences. Some of the specific instances of that Franke admitted to, such as kicking a child while wearing boots, holding their head underwater, and cutting off oxygen, are not part of Hildebrandt's plea. Hildebrandt does state that she either physically forced or coerced the 9-year-old girl to jump into a cactus multiple times. So yeah, if this is true, they were both just disgusting in different ways. They had their own separate methods, it seems. We do also have a video of the waiver hearing. I'm not going to play it all, but just so you get an idea. I mean, as a lot of people also mentioned, like, in the comment section of this and on threads and whatnot, she looks, like, worse for wear, right? She doesn't look like she's having the best time in there. Which, I mean, is not surprising, right? She's been in jail, but I just can't help but feel like she would feel sorry for herself in this situation. Like, she feels like she's done nothing wrong here and that the world's against her. If I just had a guess of what Jodi Hildebrandt's feelings are at this point, that's what I would assume. Just from the videos that we've seen previously. Yeah, so this is actually probably the first time we've seen Jodi Himdebrandt upset since she released that really bizarre video with Ruby Franke where she was trying to, like, rally the troops together, you know, and, like, trying to get all the mothers to join in, saying that they're being attacked and that they need to defend the trenches and all this shit, which basically meant that she wanted a bunch of mothers to join in with the stuff that they were doing behind the scenes. Obviously, at that point, when we first saw that video, we had no idea the actual details that were going on, right, and the seriousness of it all. We knew it was really serious, but, I mean, no one could have guessed what was actually going on. But what I'm trying to say is the only time I've ever seen Jodi Himdebrandt upset before is when she tried getting people to join in what she was doing, right? When she was actually making these videos and just giving horrible advice to parents, she was more than happy to do so.
Your Honor, the agreement contains a factual basis. There are a few details in the factual basis that we are not in full agreement with. However, this is a guilty plea. It is not an Alford plea. The factual basis sets forth facts that we agree with, that Ms. Hildebrandt agrees with, that are sufficient for the court to accept her plea with respect to the 4 counts.
Yes, as you just heard right here, Jodi Hildebrandt's attorney does say that there are some points of the agreement that they do not agree with. Doesn't go into too much detail, and this is something that people have tried speculating about too, right? But we don't know. I mean, it's not really surprising that Jodi's not going to agree with all of this. In fact, I would assume she doesn't agree with any of it. Like, if we're just going based on what we know of Jodi Himdebrandt, I would assume she's just trying to get the lightest sentence possible.
Then, Ms. Hildebrandt, how do you plead to count 1, aggravated child, a second-degree felony?
Guilty.
And then she goes on to plead guilty to the 4 charges, the same that happened with Ruby Franke. But let's actually go and take a look at the interview with Jodi Hildebrandt's attorney, Douglas Terry.
Ms. Hildebrandt, my client, has pled guilty today to 4 counts. She has done so because she takes responsibility for her conduct in this matter. Her guilty pleas, she decided to plead guilty before Ms. Franke entered into her plea agreement or agreed to cooperate with the state.
Right, so this is an interesting point that he brings up that a lot of people don't seem to believe, but he does go on to say that Jodi Himdebrandt agreed to plead guilty before Ruby Franke. It's something that obviously we can't know 100%. But either way, you would have an incredibly hard time convincing me that Jodi Himdebrandt has decided to plead guilty because she's actually sorry for what she's done and she wants to take responsibility, and it's not just because she's trying to get a lighter sentence. Like, you would have an incredibly tough time convincing me that.
She has pled guilty because she did not want these children to have to testify.
I'm sorry. Is that a load of shit or is it just me? I get that this is his job, right? He's got to say stuff like this, so fair enough. But That I do not believe for a second. I don't believe there's an ounce of Jodi Hildebrandt that cares for other people in general, never mind children, with the stuff we've seen previously. It hasn't just been with Ruby's kids, it's been with her own family, it's been with her niece. And I can't even go on to list the amount of people that have came forward to talk about their experience with Jodi Hildebrandt over the past few years, right? It's an endless list at this point. But now after decades of this behaviour just ruining people's lives left, right and centre, all of a sudden she cares if the children have to testify? Don't believe it.
She takes responsibility, and it is her main concern at this point that these children can heal, both physically and emotionally.
Again, look, it's his job, right? He's got to say stuff like this, but I do not believe it for a second. I don't think anyone else will.
There are people all over the world that are coming out and saying that Jodi Hildebrandt has destroyed families, that she has hurt a lot of people. Has she seen this kind of the backlash that's happening, and what does she have to say about it?
I'm not going to have any more comment, nor is she, at least prior to sentencing. Thank you.
When will the sentencing take place?
February 20th.
Yeah, so February 20th, which I believe is the same day as the Ruby one, right? But as he just said right there, he's not going to talk about the other allegations that are against Jodi Hildebrandt with the other families and whatnot. I mean, that's probably in her best interest, right? Because I don't know how she would be able to excuse any of that. I would love to hear some comment, but obviously they're not going to want to comment about it because, again, it's not going to make her look good. She also hasn't been sentenced yet, right? So she's trying to look as good as possible. It's probably the last thing that she wants in the media. It just so happens that it is going to be in the media because that's what Jodi Hildebrandt's been doing for the past decade or so. But speaking of the sentencing, KUTV actually released an article talking about what the minimum and maximum sentence could look like for both people here. And it's interesting. I mean, they're going to do years regardless, right? It's just how many years exactly. In this case, neither Franke or Hildebrandt have criminal history. So the minimum sentence for the first aggravated charge would be 18 months. However, criminal defense attorney Jeremy Deuce said that only applies to the first prison term. According to the sentencing guidelines, they don't do 18 months and 18 months and 18 months and 18 months to calculate the minimum, he said. Franke and Hildebrandt would only have to serve 40% of each of the 3 remaining charges after that. Where they're running 4 consecutively, the anticipation for the base that they're going to be doing 39.6 months, I think it's just shy of 40 months. So adding everything together, the minimum amount they will serve will be just shy of 3 years and 4 months, which could include time served. Now, of course, that's a minimum amount. He does go on to say that the maximum amount would be 30 years, but it's probably not going to be anywhere near that. I mean, obviously, if it was up to me and many people watching this video right now, it would be the maximum sentence, right? It just doesn't work like that. It's going to be at least 3 years and 4 months. Hopefully a bit longer. We have been hearing the whole 5-6 year mark getting thrown around quite a lot, but at the end of the day, we don't know. We're not going to know for a couple more months now, but hopefully it's a bit longer than the minimum sentence, but either way, they're going to be doing years in prison, which is good. Now, one point that's also worth mentioning in this article is it does end by saying, will either Franke or Hildebrandt ever be allowed to see the kids again? Analysts said there's no laws preventing them from speaking with the children in the future, but both women will be watched by the Utah Division of Child and Family Services, and the children will decide if they ever want to communicate with these women ever again. Now, I would imagine that they're never going to speak to Jodi Hildebrandt again. That should be a guarantee after everything that's happened. I mean, she's not even the mother, right? As for Ruby, that's obviously more complicated. It's up to the children, so we don't know. But there is no law from preventing them speaking with their children anymore. I saw a lot of people questioning that in the comment sections of the previous video, so I thought that was worth mentioning. But either way, I'm going to leave the video there, and I'm actually going to add a link in the description to a new interview that has came out with Jessie Hildebrandt, Jodi's niece. The reason why I'm putting it in the description and not in this video is because I don't feel like it needs my commentary. This week must have been incredibly stressful for Jessie, seeing Jodi finally being held accountable. Of course, it's not for what she did to Jessie, but she is going to be held accountable for the abuse that she's been doing over the years. And I can't imagine how emotional this week has been. I feel like it'd be much better to watch without my commentary added to it. But yeah, if well, obviously keep you guys updated if anything else happens before the sentencing. I'm not sure if much else will happen now till February, but we'll see. And if you are new, subscribe, all that stuff. And until next one, I'll see you guys in a bit. All right, goodbye.